we don't starve ourselves today because we had meal yesterday. Every day we eat food. So just like food, the stories of Ramayana must be consumed every day. And that is why Ramayana, even if it has been told yesterday, it has to be told today and it has to be told tomorrow again. And this is such a fundamental observation which is stated by Molla, that Ramayana needs to be told and retold again and again for that age, in the language of that age. How is Ramayana related to South? So Valmiki's Ramayana, it is a Saptakand Ramayana. There are 7 chapters each, or 7 books I should say. 7 books, each book is called as a Kand. And of these 7 Kand, we have 4 of them which happen or which are set in south, to the south of Vindhya. So we have Aranya Kand, Kishkindha Kand, Sundar Kand and Yuddha Kand. All of them, they are set to the south of Vindhya. We also have Ramayanas written in Telugu. So there is Sri Ramayanamu, there is Nirvachanottar Ramayana, Bhaskar Ramayana, Ram Abhyudhyam, there is Sugriv Vijayam, there is Ranganath Ramayana, Gopinath Ramayana, Ekoji Ramayana and Molla Ramayana. All of these are written in Telugu. Then there are Ramayanas Malayalam. So there is Ramacharitam, RāmaKathāMālā, Kannasha Ramayana, Champu Ramayana. There are Ramayana which are written in Kannada. So there is Torve Ramayana, Mairavan Kallaga. There is Jaimini Bharat, Adbhut Ramayana, Chamaraj Koti Ramayana. So all of these, they are written in Kannada. Then there is also the Ramayana which is written in Sri Lanka. So this Sri Lankan Ramayana, it is written in Sinhali language and it is called Janaki Vivah. Just before going for that battle, facing Ravan, what Agasti teaches Ram is the Aditya Hridaya Stotra. So this Aditya Hridaya Stotra is the praise of Surya Dev, who is of course the first, the Adi Purush of the solar dynasty of the Surya Vamshi Ram. So Ram sings that stotra, and with that he gets the confidence of facing Ravan. So we have in Mahabharata Arjun receiving Gita from Krishna, and in Ramayana we have Ram receiving this Aditya Hridaya Stotra from sage Agastya. So, Namaste. Today we are going to talk about Ramayanas of the South. So technically South India is everything that is south of Vindhya. So everything that is south of Narmada. So we have Maharashtra, parts of Chhattisgarh and Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Kerala. All of this, and even Sri Lanka, all of this comes in the south. So we'll take a look at the various Ramayanas that have been written over here. And what we will do is we'll start with a small story from a Ramayana, which is from the south. So this story is, the scene is Sita Swayamvar. And so many princes have gathered over there. And everybody wants to try their hand at stringing that Shiva Dhanusha and winning the hand of Sita. So in this court, Vishwamitra comes with Ram and Lakshman, and they are also sitting, and one by one as the princes go and try to string that bow, nobody is able to even lift that bow. And one by one as they fail, it is the turn of Ram. So Ram takes the permission from Vishwamitra and Janak Raja, and he starts walking towards the bow. Now as Ram is walking towards the bow, Lakshman is looking at him and he is thinking, my brother always wins. He's always victorious. He's invictus. So he gives out a warning. He says that now that Ram is going towards that bow, he is going to lift it up. he is going to string that bow, and as he is going to pull that string, the bow is going to break with a huge thunderous sound. So Lakshman gives this warning, and what he says is, "O Ashtadikpal, the protectors of eight directions, brace yourself, ready thyself to hold the direction steady, lest the shattering sound shakes the earth." And then he says to all those princes who have gathered there, he says, now you are no longer competitors of each other. He says, actually, now the competition is over because Ram is walking and he is going to string that bow. Ram is going to win that competition. The competition is over. You are now no longer competitors of each other. You are no longer enemies of each other. You are now each other's friends. So hold on and support each other, lest you fall to the ground by the deafening sound. Because my unfailing brother, Ram, he is approaching that bow. He will soon lift that mighty bow. He will string it, and the great bow of Shiva, it will break with a thunderous roar. The earth will tremble, and the directions will shudder. Watch out, O Ashtadikpal. Take care of all those eight directions. Hold them steady. This is the scene from Ramayana. This is the scene from of Sita Swayamvar from Molla's Ramayana. So this Molla Ramayana is written by a poetess named Molla. Molla means mogra, a jasmine flower, and this is written in the 15th century. So Molla had a flair for writing stories in spoken language. So she used to write in Telugu, the spoken language, and her writing was very concise and clear and easy to understand. And on her father's encouragement, she translated the Sanskrit Valmiki Ramayana into Telugu. So now this story of Molla, this Ramayana of Molla, it destroys all the labels that are, used for India. So here we have in 15th century a woman writer who is also learned in Sanskrit. She has received some education. She is also a daughter of a potter. She comes from a poor family. And whatever she is writing, she is receiving encouragement from her father, but her works are also being read by the people. And she is popular among the masses. And not just amongst the masses, she is a celebrated and an honored poetess in the court of Vijayanagar. And lastly, one more thing about Molla is that she is born in a Lingayat family. She is a Shiva Bhakta, she is a Shaiva, and she is writing the story of Ram, who is an avatar of Vishnu. So she just destroys all those labels. She just destroys all those narratives that are run, about the enmity between the Shaiva and Vaishnava, and about, uh, women not getting education, women not in the position of writing. But we have here a woman poet who is receiving education, who is learned, who is writing, and she is the one who is writing this Molla Ramayana in Telugu. Now, this Molla, she was asked, why are you writing Ramayana? So she says, so far, so many Ramayana have already been written. We are now in the 15th century. And in the 15th century, she is saying there are so many Ramayana that have been written before me. But see, we don't starve ourselves today because we had meal yesterday. Every day we eat food. So just like food, the stories of Ramayana must be consumed every day. And that is why Ramayana, even if it has been told yesterday, it has to be told today and it has to be told tomorrow again. And this is such a fundamental observation which is stated by Molla, that Ramayana needs to be told and retold again and again for that age, in the language of that age. And this is exactly what we find when we start looking at the Ramayanas of South. So, how is Ramayana related to South? So Valmiki's Ramayana, it is a Saptakand Ramayana. There are 7 chapters each, or 7 books, I should say. 7 books. Each book is called as a Kand. And of these 7 Kand, we have 4 of them which happen or which are set in to the south of Vindhya. So we have Aranyakand, Kishkindhakand, Sundarkand, and Yuddhakand. All of them, they are set to the south of Vindhya. So more than 3/4 of the Ramayana, the most important part of Ramayana, it all occurs in the south. So Ramayana is the story of all of India. It is the story of North, it is the story of South, and everybody connects themselves to Ramayana. So, and just as all the people connect themselves to Ramayana, we also have Ram connecting himself to the whole of India. So when Ram is in the north, Ram has 2 gurus. So his one guru is a sage Vashishta. So Vashishta is the family guru of the Ikshvakus. He is the Raj Purohit. And Ram gets the basic education, the basic training in Shastra and Shastra from Vashishta, sage Vashishta. Later on, one day, after his education is over, Vishwamitra comes to Ayodhya. And see what we have over here. We have a guru coming in search of his disciple. Vishwamitra comes in search of Ram. He comes to Ayodhya, he comes to Dashrath, and he says he wants Ram so that Ram will protect the yajna. He will protect the yajna from a Tadaka who is attacking the yajna from time to time. And then Ram and Lakshman who follows Ram like a shadow. So Ram and Lakshman together, they leave with Vishwamitra, and then Vishwamitra becomes the guru of Ram. So we have Vishwamitra telling Ram about the history and geography. He is also telling about the events that have happened in the past in the Ikshvaku Kul. So he's telling all these stories, and along with that, what Vishwamitra does is he teaches him many Divyastra. He gives him many weapons. He teaches him the Divyastra, and then he takes Ram to the forest of Tadaka. Now, what Tadaka has done is she is not just destroying the yajna, but she has also destroyed the towns of Malada and Karusha. So these are the Janapada or small towns which she has destroyed, and the people terrified by her, they have left the town and gone elsewhere. Tadaka has also destroyed the forest. And people who are dwelling in the forest, they have also gone elsewhere to find shelter because of the terror activities of Tadaka. And now, as Vishwamitra, Ram, and Lakshman, they enter the Tadaka Van. They enter this forest of Tadaka. Tadaka attacks the 3 of them with stones. So she starts pelting stones on them. And in the beginning, Ram is hesitant to fight or to combat with a woman. So looking at his hesitation, Vishwamitra gives him a lesson over there, saying that, you shouldn't hesitate to slay Tadaka, because even if a terrorist happens to be a woman, he or she must be eliminated. So this is one of the very important and one of the first lessons that Ram receives in the real world. So far Ram has been learning in Gurukul. Yeah, he has been learning in the ashram of his guru. But when he steps into the real world, this is the first lesson that he gets. And then later on, after the Sita Vivaha, and then Ram is sent to the exile for 14 years, we have Ram coming to the south. Ram crosses the Vindhya, comes to the south, and now we have Ram searching for a guru. So Ram is searching for sage Agastya. Agastya has come to the south very long ago, and Ram has heard stories of sage Agastya, and he wants to learn so many things from Agastya. So he starts asking the dwellers in the forest about the whereabouts of Agastya. And once he gets to know where he is living, Ram, Lakshman, and Sita, they go and meet sage Agastya. Now, what sage Agastya does is he gives Ram many weapons. many divine weapons he gives, which include the bow of Vishnu, and he also gives 2 quivers to Ram, which are filled with filled with arrows. They are ever filled with arrows. They never run out of arrows. And he gives him a golden sword. And then Agastya tells him that you should now go further south to Panchavati. So after that, Ram, Lakshman, and Sita, taking that command from Agastya, they move to Panchavati. And then at Panchavati, we have that scene of Shurpankha, and then later on the abduction of Sita. And we also have Ram then befriending Sugriv and then taking the army of Vanaras, going to the south, marching to Lanka, crossing the sea. And over there is the battle of Ram and Ravan. So when the day comes that Ram and Ravan, they are going to meet each other, they are going to face each other on the battlefield. It is at that time that sage Agastya comes and visits Ram again. So this, we find that, this is the guru in the south of Ram, who is with him constantly, who is with, like, almost like, holding hands with Ram. And just before going for that battle, facing Ravan, what Agastya teaches Ram is the Aditya Hridaya Stotra. So this Aditya Hridaya Stotra is the praise of Surya Dev, who is, of course, the first, the Adi Purush of the solar dynasty of the Surya Vamshi Ram. So Ram sings that stotra, and with that he gets the confidence of facing Ravan. So we have in Mahabharata Arjun receiving Gita from Krishna, and in Ramayana we have Ram receiving this Aditya Hridaya Stotra from sage Agastya. And with that confidence, he steps into the battlefield, and then there is the fierce battle between Ram and Ravan. And in the end, Ram uses the arrow which is given by Agastya to slay Ravan. And this arrow, which is given by Agastya, it is a very swift and a blazing arrow which hisses like a serpent as it goes and hits Ravan. So this is what how Agastya influences Ram, and the very important role that Agastya plays in the story of Ramayana. Now, why is Agastya important? Is because Agastya is not only writing some sukta in Rigveda, but he is also the writer of Tamil grammar. So Agastya writes the grammar for the Tamil language, and thus he is a very respected figure throughout the ancient times and later on also throughout India, and not just India, even beyond India in the Southeast Asian countries. Now, when Agastya is writing the Tamil grammar, we understand that some Tamil literature is also being written. And the earliest Tamil literature is the Sangam Sahitya. So the Sangam Sahitya, it is believed that it is written probably somewhere around the 6th century BCE. And Sangam Sahitya, basically Sangam is a confluence, a gathering of poets. So there are poets who gather together, and certain poems are getting published in this Sangam. So the Sangam Sahitya, there are so many poems in that, and it mentions Ved, it mentions Yajna, Yupa, and it also mentions the worship of Shiva and Vishnu and Ram and Krishna and Pandavas worship as well. So this is to set the context of Sangam Sahitya. So there were 3 such Sangams which took place. The first Sangam was chaired by Agastya. So we have the Guru of Ram, right? So it could be another Agastya down in that line, but we have Agastya chairing the first Sangam conference. And then the second one was chaired by a disciple of Agastya. And then there was another third Sangam which took place at Madurai. Now this earliest Sangam Sahitya, we have this Sahitya mentioning events from Ramayana. So I'll take one example, one poem from Sangam. So there is this poet who goes to the king's court, and he recites the poems that he has composed. The king is very pleased listening to those beautiful poems. So what the king does is, the next day he sends gifts to the poet's home. So at at his home there are all his illiterate relatives, and the king's men, they come with the gifts of golden ornaments. And once they come and leave those ornaments over there, his relatives, they just pounce upon that. They have never seen any ornaments before. So they just, like, rush on and, start putting on those ornaments. And they don't know how to wear it. So what they do is, like, they wear the anklets as necklaces, and they wear the necklaces as waistbands, and they wear the bangles as anklets, and like that. And this childlike act of his relative reminds the poet of Sugriv's Vanar Sen. So this is a very small 4-line poem in which the poet says that, see, my foolish relatives, they are behaving like the Vanaras of Sugriv. What had the Vanaras of Sugriv done? They had found that parcel which Sita had dropped from the Pushpak Viman when Ravan was abducting her. So from the Pushpak Viman, Sita had dropped her ornaments, which the Vanaras found, and the Vanaras, not knowing how to wear them, they were wearing those uh, ornaments without a clue as to how to wear them. So that is why the poet is comparing his relatives with the Vanaras of Sugriv. Now, the poet is only mentioning this. The poet is only mentioning the Vanaras of Sugriv, how they found the ornaments and how they were wearing those ornaments. This means that, you know, the poet is aware about the story of Ramayana. The poet is aware about how Sita has been abducted. Poet is aware about how Sita had taken care that she is, giving clues for Ram to find her. And it is not just the poet who knows the story of Ramayana. All his readers know that story. And because they know that story, they can imagine how the relatives of this poet are looking. How the relatives of this poet are behaving. So we understand from this that Ramayana is a lot older than Sangam Sahitya. We understand that it was known to the people of South, and it was loved by the people of South. Otherwise, why else would they make songs about it? While we are speaking of South, we must take a look at another Ramayana, which was written in Maharashtra, in central India near Nagpur. There was this king of the Vakatak dynasty called Pravarasen. He is the king of 4th century, and he wrote the Ramayana in Prakrit language. So the name of his Ramayana is Ravana Vaho, or it is also called Dashamukha Vaho. Vaho is Vadha, so Vadha of Ravan. And he has written only 2 Kand, the Sundar Kand and the Yuddha Kand. So we have, from very ancient times, so even before the Common Era, even more than 2000 years ago, we have people writing Ramayana in the language of common people. We have Ramayana being mentioned in Maharashtra Prakrit, in Pravarasen's Ramayana, and we have Ramayana being mentioned in the Sangam Sahitya. Similarly, in Maharashtra, there is Gatha Saptashati. So it is a 1st century collection of poetries that is also mentioning events from Ramayana. So at least for 2000 years, the people of South, they are telling the stories of Ramayana. We come now a little later to around 5th century. And this is Indic, Tamil Nadu. So over there, many Mahakavya, many epics are being written. There are 5 Tamil Mahakavya. One amongst them is Silappathikaram. Now, this is attributed to Irango Idigal. He is a Chera prince who became a Jaina Muni, and he is writing the story of Ram. He is not writing story of Ram, he is writing this Mahakavya Silappathikaram. But in this Silappathikaram, he begins it with praise for Ram. He says, "May I sing your name at all times." And he then writes the story, a tragic love story of Kannagi and her husband Kovalam. So it is a story of love and injustice. What happens is Kannagi and Kovalam, they come to Madurai. And at Madurai, the husband Kovalam, he takes one anklet of Kannagi and he is going to sell it in the market. People in the market, they think that he is a thief who has stolen the anklet of the queen. So they take him to the king, and the king, without any further investigations, declares that he is guilty and punishes him with a death sentence. When Kannagi comes to know of it, she takes the second anklet that she has and she goes to the court of this king. And she is very angry and fuming. She proves how her husband is innocent, and this innocent person has been punished by the king. So she curses the king. She curses him with a death sentence and with death. And she even curses the city of Madurai that it will burn down. So this is a story of Silappathikaram. But when this story is being written, the poet gives so many examples from Ramayana. So he speaks about Hanuman burning down Lanka. He speaks about the battle of Ram and Ravan. And he speaks about the grief of the people of Ayodhya when Ram leaves for exile. And even this story, it is broken into chapters which are called as Kanda. Just like Ramayana has Kanda, which are named after the place uh, where the scenes are occurring. So we have Ayodhya Kand, we have Aranya Kand, and Sundar Kand, etc., Kishkinda Kand. Similarly, in Silappathikaram, it is divided into 3 Kanda, which is Pugur Kand, Madurai Kand, and Manchi Kand. So we see the impact of Ramayana on the Mahakavyas of Tamil. Moving ahead, when we come to 7th, 8th, 9th century, we see many saints in Tamil Nadu. So here in the south, we find 63 Shaiva saints who are called Nayanmar. And then there are 12 Vaishnav saints who are called Alvars. So the Alvar saints, they have written left quite a lot of literature. And because they are Vaishnav saints, obviously, they are writing about Vishnu, they are writing about the Dashavatar of Vishnu, and obviously they are writing about Ram. So they are mentioning in their poetry, they are mentioning almost every incident from Ramayana. So I'll just tell one or two poems of the Alvar saints and how they mention Ram. So here is one Alvar song in which the Santa says that like the serpent spreads his hoods to support the world. So this serpent is of course Ananta. Like he, the king of serpent, he spreads his hoods. Damodar, Damodara's fingers, they are unfurled like a petal of a lotus. Now this lotus is pink and blue lotus. Yeah, so this pink and blue lotus blooming, it is his Karakamala. And in his palm, he effortlessly lifted the lush green Govardhan hill. Now we are speaking about this. This is a poem about Krishna. So this is a poem about Giridhara Krishna who is lifting the Govardhan mountain. And now the Alvar saint is describing that mountain. He says it is that mountain on which the Vanaris, yeah, they are singing lullabies for their children. And what lullabies they are singing? They are singing the songs of Hanuman. They are singing the songs of Hanuman who had burned down Lanka with a swish of his tail. So they're telling the story of Krishna, and in that they're telling about Hanuman. They are telling about how Hanuman has burned down Lanka. Then here is another Alvar. So in this, the Alvar Santa says, he is saying this to Vishnu. Oh Vishnu, in your last birth, your wish to walk was left undone. Yeah, so this last birth is the birth of Vaman, the Vaman avatar. In Vaman avatar, Vaman had asked for 3 steps, but he could take only 2 steps. And the third step he had to put on the head of King Bali. So the Santa is saying, your wish to walk was left undone. You wanted to take 3 steps, but you had to settle for 2. So now in this birth as Ram, you are fulfilling your wish of walking. And you have taken a journey from Ayodhya to Lanka. And hence you have come here to the south in my land. Such very beautiful songs we see that have been composed in very old times in the south, which describe the events of Ramayana. So now these are just like, events of Ramayana that are being mentioned in the southern literature. But we also have various Ramayana that have been written in the south. So I'll just mention some of them. So we have in Kochi a Ramayana called as the Godde Ramayana. And then there is another Ramayana of northern Kerala, which is called Sita Shuddhi. Then there is Sita Kalyan of south coastal Karnataka. And then of Goa, there is Ramayana Ranamale. And then there is again in Goa, another Ramayana which is called Ramayanacho Kanyo. This is written by Krishnadas Sham. In Maharashtra, there are so many Ramayana. There is Eknath's Bhavartha Ramayana. There is Ramdas Swami's Ramayana. Then there is Santa Mukteshwar's Ramayana. And then there is one poet, Moropanta, who wrote not 1, 2, 10, but he wrote 108 Ramayanas. So this is in the coastal areas of India to the west. We also have Ramayanas written in Telugu. So there is Sri Ramayanamu, there is Nirvachanottar Ramayana, Bhaskar Ramayana, Ram Abhyudhyam, there is Sugriv Vijayamu, there is Ranganath Ramayana, Gopinath Ramayana, Ekoji Ramayana, and Molla Ramayana. All of these are written in Telugu. Then there are Ramayanas Malayalam. So there is Ramacharitam, RāmaKathāMālā, Kannasha Ramayana, Champu Ramayana. There are Ramayana which are written in Kannada. So there is Torve Ramayana, Mairavan Kallaga. There is Jaimini Bharat, Adbhut Ramayana, Chamaraj Koti Ramayana. So all of these they are written in Kannada. Then there is also the Ramayana which is written in Sri Lanka. So this Sri Lankan Ramayana, it is written in Sinhali language and it is called Janaki Vivaha. So this is the kind of the footprint of Ramayana in the south, where every language, not just the major languages, but also like, the Konkani and the other spoken languages which have their own oral Ramayanas as well. So these are the Ramayana of South. We'll take 1 or 2 examples of South Ramayanas of South, which are very popular. One of them is the Pampa Ramayana. So now this Pampa Ramayana is written in Kannada, and it is written by a Jain monk. So he is called as Abhinav Pampa, and because it is written by Abhinav Pampa, it is called as the Pampa Ramayana. So this Ramayana is basically written for teaching the principles of Jain sect. So he is telling the story of Ramayana, which generally follows the major events in Valmiki Ramayana, but he is adding so many different events which we will not see in Valmiki Ramayana. So what we see in this Jain Ramayana, because Jainism teaches ahimsa, we see that in this Ramayana, Ram does not like the Rakshas because they are meat eaters. And because they are violent in nature. So that is why Ram is does not like the Rakshas. And then in this Ramayana, again, Ram is ahimsavadi. So Ram does not slay Vali. Vali himself takes Jain Diksha and he goes away. He hands over the kingdom to Sugriv and he goes away. And then lastly, when it comes to slaying Ravan, it isn't Ram who slays Ravan, but it is Lakshman who slays Ravan. So what we see in this Jain Ramayana is that even if it isn't not Ram who slays Ravan, Ravan has to be slain because Ravan is doing adharma. He has to be punished. He has to be given danda, and his danda is a deha danda. So even if it is a Jain Ramayana, even if it is a Vanvasi Ramayana, even if it is a Shakta Ramayana, Vaishnav Ramayana, any Ramayana you take, Ravan has to be slayed. So in most of the Ramayans, it is Ram who slays Ravan. But in some Ramayana, we find Lakshman slaying Ravan. And in some Shakta Ramayana, we have Sita who slays Ravan. So coming back to Pampa Ramayana, I'll tell one small story from this Ramayana. This is a story of Jatayu. So now Ram, Lakshman and Sita, they are in the exile. And in Valmiki Ramayana, we have Ram, Lakshman and Sita going to the ashramas of various rishis and meeting them. But now in the Jain tradition, there are no ashrams of the Jain rishis. The Jain monks are wandering monks. So we have the Jain monks coming and visiting the ashram of Ram, Lakshman and Sita. So one day it so happens that a Jain Muni comes to visit Ram. And Sita, serves him food. So there is this vulture, Jatayu, who is sitting on a branch on a tree nearby, and he is watching all these things that are going on. So this Jain Muni comes, and Ram, Lakshman, and Sita, they are sitting over there, they are talking, and he's listening to all of that conversation which is going on, which is obviously a conversation about non-violence, about ahimsa. And Sita is serving food to the Jain Muni. The Jain Muni has a hearty meal, and then he washes his hand in the plate. Suddenly, the Jatayu, he is drawn towards that plate, and he just swoops down and takes a bath in that water. And at that moment, a transformation takes place in him. And in spite of being a vulture, he gives up meat. And from then on, he becomes a vegetarian and he becomes a companion of Ram, Lakshman, and Sita. So, to drive that point of vegetarian meal and to drive the point of ahimsa home, this Ramayana, tells this very wonderful tale, very beautiful tale of Jatayu. So, this tale comes from the Pampa Ramayana. And then this is a 11th century Ramayana. A little later, in 12th century, we have Kamba Rishi writing the Kamba Ramayana. So we call this Ramayana written by Kamba is very popular as Kamba Ramayana, but he himself wrote it as Ramavataram. So he is writing this tale as an avatar of Vishnu. Valmiki writes the tale of Ram as a Manushya, as a hero. But by the time of Kamba, Ram is an avatar of Vishnu. And that is why this is Ramavataram. So what we see is this Kamba Ramayana, it has 6 kanda. So it doesn't have the Uttarakand. It ends at the coronation of Ram. And the Kamba Ramayana is a very big epic. It has 11,000 verses. So it is almost the Yuddha Kand of Kamba Ramayana is as big as Homer's Iliad and Odyssey put together. That is how big the Kamba Ramayana is. And each verse is of 4 lines. So this is about 44,000 lines long. So the Kamba Ramayana, it is very dramatic and very poetic, and it evokes emotions, and it's written in a very beautiful way. So in this Ramayana, we have so many, dramatic things that we find in this Ramayana. So one of them is the Ahilya Uddhar Prasanga. In Valmiki Ramayana, Ahilya is a sage. Yeah, so she is a Rushika. And when Ram and Lakshman visit the ashram of Gautam, they bow down to Ahilya and they touch her feet. Whereas by the time of Kamba, Ahilya has turned into a stone. So Ram touches that stone with his feet and she turns back into Ahilya. So this is the story that we see in Kamba Ramayana. This is possibly an impact of Kalidasa's Raghuvansh, in which Ahilya has turned into a stone. And another dramatic event in the Kamba Ramayana is the meeting of Ram and Sita. So Ram and Sita, they meet each other before the wedding. And Kamba describes this very beautiful event. What he says is that Sita is standing in the balcony. So possibly, the first floor balcony, she's standing over there talking with her Sakhi. And she has put her hand on the sill and she is looking like this downward. And at that time, Vishwamitra comes to Mithila with Ram and Lakshman. So Vishwamitra is walking ahead, behind him is Ram and behind him is Lakshman. And Vishwamitra is taking them to the court of Janaka. So Ram, he has just done all this parakram. He has slayed Tadaka, he has slayed Subahu, he has defeated Marich, and he has protected the Yajna, he has protected the forest, and even those two Janapada from Tadaka. So he is like, walking with his chin high. So he is walking like this, looking up, and there we have Sita on the in her balcony, looking like this, and their eyes meet each other, and they see each other, and in that moment they both fall in love with each other. And the Kamba describes this as, that they are seeing each other. That sight, it builds a bridge between two hearts, and it is as if Vishnu and Lakshmi, who had been parted from each other for a while, the soulmates are meeting again. And I think this has an impact on Tulsidasa's Ramayana as well, where Tulsidas has Ram and Sita meeting in a garden, seeing each other in a garden in Ramcharitamanas. So likewise, this Kamba Ramayana, it describes some scenes very differently from Valmiki Ramayana. Another scene which Kamba describes differently is the Sita Haran Prasanga. So in the Sita Haran Prasanga, what Kamba is a very sensitive poet, and he can hardly tolerate that Ravan, abducts Sita. He puts her on his back and takes her to the Viman against her wishes. He can hardly, digest this. So what he describes this particular episode of Sita Haran in a different way. He says that what Ravan does is he just excavates that Parnakuti along with Sita and puts that Parnakuti in the Pushpak Viman. And then he takes that Parnakuti to Lanka and puts it down in the Ashokvan. So he puts it down in the Ashokvan with Sita and all. So this is how we see the episode of Sita Haran in Kamba Ramayana. And we have Ram being described in Kamba Ramayana by so many different people in very different ways. So when Shurpanka is describing Ram, she says he looks like Madan. He looks like Kamadev. He's so handsome. And then we have Ravan also describing Ram. So when Ravan is describing Ram, he says he is so handsome. He looks like Kamadev himself. And then he thinks to himself, why will Sita give up Ram and, like me at all when Ram is so handsome? These are the thoughts of Ravan. And then when Bibhishan sees Ram for the first time, Bibhishan is a devotee of Ram. So when he sees Ram, he does not see Ram in his human form. He has the darshan of Ram as Dharma himself. So the way Bibhishan describes Ram is, he says, I'm not seeing a human figure, but I'm seeing this tall, huge, dark mountain with beautiful eyes. He says Ram looks like a huge, dark, rain-carrying cloud with lotus eyes. That is how different people describe Ram in Kamba Ramayana. And then in the end, we have this battle of Ram and Ravan, and Ram wins that battle and then establishes Vibhishan on the throne of Lanka and rescues Sita, and then they go back to Ayodhya, and then Ram is coronated. So the Kamba Ramayana ends with the coronation of Ram. And when it ends with coronation, Kamba is describing that coronation. So how he describes? He describes that coronation without naming Ram and Sita. He is saying that a king is being coronated and a queen, king and queen, they are being coronated, and they are having very learned ministers who are going to give very good advice to that king. That is how he is describing the coronation of Ram. It is as if describing the coronation of Dharma on the um, throne of Ayodhya. So it is the coronation of Dharma. And these mantra which Kamba has written, they are like mantra which can be used for any coronation. It feels as if Kamba is actually giving his blessings. Kamba is actually giving the mantras for the coronation of any king in India who will who will rule like Ram, who will be like Dharma. And that is how he is describing this Rajabhishek mantra, and he's making a wish that may India get dharmic rulers. Lastly, what he says is that Ram is an avatar, and he says not just of Vishnu, but Ram is an avatar of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. He says Brahma left his kamandalu in this Swarga. Shiva left his Trishul and Damru at Kailas, and Vishnu left his Shankha Chakra Gada in Vaikuntha, and then took birth on this earth as Ram. And to this Ram, we all surrender. Generally, all the mantra are like, I surrender. It is generally, it is, it's one person, me, who is surrendering. But here we have Kamba, who says we all surrender to Ram. And when he says we all, this we, it includes the devotees of Brahma, devotees of Vishnu, devotees of Shankar, devotees of Shakti. So there are Shakta, there are Jain, there are Buddhists, there are men, women, children, human, animal, plant. Everybody, he is including everybody. We all surrender to Ram. And with that ends the Kamba Ramayana. And of course, it's not just with Kamba Ramayana that the writing of Ramayanas in South has stopped. But we have so many more Ramayanas which um, are again told and retold in South. So, with this, I will stop over here and thank uh, Indus Center for giving me this opportunity of speaking about the Ramayanas of South. And I also thank all of you who are listening over here to me without any interruption. So many thanks. Dhanyavad.